We are in danger, friend. The guildmasters dismissed Zevran's threats without considering just how many assassins were similarly disaffected. Too many of our numbers have been cheated out of their rightful tithes, driven into hiding, or intimidated into silence. And somehow, Zevran is finding them all. They are blind, and it makes me think maybe Zevran is right. Perhaps it is time for a change. Welcome, patrons. Now, I get a lot of requests to do more companion-based videos, which I do plan on doing more, but the fact is they just take a long time to do. In fact, this video is already really late. But yeah, that aside, one of the most requesting companions I get currently is everyone's favorite stupidly lucky assassin, Zevran Aranai. Childhood. As Zevran tells us, he was born in Antivan City to a Dalish woman who fell in love with a non-Dalish man, an elven woodcutter. She left her clan to marry him, but he died suddenly, leaving both Zevran and his mother alone. In World of Thedas, it is revealed that Zevran's father was actually killed by the crows in 904 Dragon, which would have been just before he was born. It's unknown why someone hired the crows to kill him, however. His mother was forced into prostitution to pay off the woodcutter's debts while her husband was still alive, and died not long after giving birth to Zevran. Zevran tells the Warden a little bit about his time growing up with the men and women in the brothel. He recalls a time when one of them, a fortune teller, predicted that he would not die young, which surprised her. From an early age, Zevran began stealing, and when he was only 7 years old, a guild master from the Crows, named Talav, began to notice his cunning. Talav then paid off the debts that Zevran had inherited, which essentially meant that he was now purchased to become one of the Crows. The Crows. Around 912 Dragon, Zevran joined the Crows officially and was one of 18 recruits to House Aranai. As a quick aside, I'm not going to go very much into his house as I don't think it informs much on Zevran, but as a very quick explanation, the Crows are divided into houses, which are ranked from most well-off to least, the top 8 using the term talons. The houses are named after powerful families that own the house. When Zevran was bought, House Aranai was first talon, meaning that they were the top of their game. But only a few short years later, in 916 Dragon, they had dropped to second talon. Guildmaster Talav was killed trying to get his house back into first talon, who was then followed up by Isiodora. She was sort of the worst, dropping Aranai into the rank of Chuchillos, which is a house in the bottom ranks. She was then killed and replaced by a man named Eomen in 926 Dragon. We know that at some point the house had gained back some of its rank, but as of 944 Dragon has now fallen into obscurity for reasons I'll go into later. Anyway, another brought recruit, called a Comprardi, was a young human boy from Deventer named Taliesin. By the end of that year, however, only the 2 boys had actually survived the training. As seen in Zevran's dream during the Broken Circle quest, training to become a crow includes tests of pain endurance, which involve torturing young recruits. But neither Zevran or Taliesin showed any real talent in their early years until Renala arrived in 916 Dragon. Renala, or Rena as she was nicknamed, was a bastard of Prince Estefan of Antiva, hidden away by the crows so that she would not aim for the crown. The 3 worked well together, with Rena being the main planner, Taliesin being the muscle, and Zevran mastering potions and seductions, which, considering how young he must have been, is a little bit disturbing, but that's that. Because they worked so well together, they began to train as a unit rather than individuals, and eventually all 3 became romantically involved with one another. Zevran could tell the Warden a bit about the jobs he was hired to do while a crow. The second job he ever worked for the Crows was to kill a young circle mage. He had found her in a carriage and the 2 spent the night together, with her convincing him to go back to the Crows and plead for her life. The next morning, she tripped and fell out of the carriage, breaking her neck and dying. Zevran would later learn that she had tricked him, and it was actually quite lucky that she had died naturally. The Crows would go on to praise him for the job well done. One of the biggest jobs Zevran had been hired to do was the assassination of a man in line for the throne. It was a complex job, and he had only one small part of it, with his group assigned to kill a woman related to him. While he killed many of her guards, he was pushed out a window, landed in a river, and was robbed by street urchins who thankfully didn't kill him. In World of Thedas Volume 2, it is revealed that Isabella and Zevran have a long history together. She had met him while still married to the man who bought her, Lewis, a rich Antivan merchant. Apparently they met while Isabella was in Antivan City, and they quickly struck up a physical relationship, as she wanted to test the boundaries with Lewis. During the time, he taught her how to use daggers to fight, which she would later refine on her own. Her relationship with Zevran, and including a few other things she had done, would bother Lewis, who had planned to give Isabella to another business partner. But as it turns out, Zevran would soon be hired to assassinate Lewis. Isabella swears that she didn't actually hire Zevran, but as the nature of Crow's contract, Zevran never found out who did. In 927 Dragon, Zevran was hired to kill Contessa Lupana, which is regarded as a remarkable death among the crows, and many assumed that his master Eomen had completed the task. But this would all change in 928 Dragon, when Zevran and Taliesin were given a tip that Rinna had accepted a bribe from their current target and planned to betray the two men. When confronted, Rinna called out that she was innocent and that she loved him, but they ignored her cries, and Zevran laughed and watched as Taliesin killed her. It was only after they completed the assassination on their new target that they learned the information was false and that Rinna had not been lying. In truth, Rinna was working with the Red Knight, or Rosso Noche, that was working to present her to the throne as a legitimate heir. Another crow house, Velisti, heard of this and bribed the Aranai master Eomen to have Rinna killed so that a member of the Velisti family could win the throne. Eomen took the opportunity to test Zevran and Taliesin's loyalty, and he would later become Grand Master for this act. Now, as a quick aside, Zevran in Dragon Age Origins tells a slightly different, although mostly compatible tale. As he puts it,
"One of the Crow Masters grew tired of my boasting. My bid for an incredibly difficult mark was accepted, much to my surprise. A wealthy merchant with many guards and completely silent. Taliesin agreed to be part of my team, as well as an elven lass named Rina. She was a marvel, tough, smooth, wicked, eyes that gleamed like justice. Everything I thought I desired. Rina was special. I had closed off my heart, I thought, but she touched something within me. It frightened me. When Taliesin revealed to me that Rina had accepted a bribe from the merchant, told him of our plan, I readily agreed that she needed to pay the price and allowed Taliesin to kill her. Rina begged me not to. On her knees, with tears in her eyes, she told me that she loved me and had not betrayed us. I laughed in her face and said that even if it were true, I didn't care. Taliesin cut her throat, and I watched her bleed as she stared up at me. I spat on her for betraying the crows. When Taliesin and I finally assassinated the merchant, we found the true source of his information. Rina had not betrayed us, after all. I wanted to tell the crows what we had done, our mistake. Taliesin convinced me not to. He said it would be a foolish waste. So we reported that Rina had died in the attempt. We needn't have bothered. The crows knew what we had done. The master who disliked me told me so to my face. He said the crows knew, and they didn't care. And one day, my turn would come.
the most notable change is that Rinna is described as an elven woman. However, her father would have been human, and therefore, as half-elves look human, she would have looked human as well. In this case, perhaps we can assume that her mother was elven, and that he could have meant elven-blooded rather than just elven, but this is another one of those awkward lore doesn't fit moments. Now, Zevran was quietly devastated, with rumors that Taliesin had to cover for Zevran to keep up appearances that he was still loyal to the Crows. This would all lead up to Zevran bidding on the contract to kill the last of the Grey Wardens in Ferelden. While some took it as an attempt to gain the rank of master within the guild, the reality was that he knew it was an impossible task, and was looking for an end. Dragon Age Origins. As we all know, Zevran wins the bid on the Warden contract, mostly because most crows are only killing Grey Wardens, and no one else actually bid on the contract, so he is hired by Arl Howe to help in Logain's plot. From there, the Warden will encounter a woman asking for help, saying that her wagon was ambushed, but surprise, it's a plot from Zevran to kill the Warden. From here, the Warden has a few options. Kill Zevran. The Warden gives Zevran the end he was looking for and leaves his body in the battlefield. Now there's sort of a bit more to this choice, but I'll leave it further on in the video. Let Zevran live. One option is to let Zevran go, to which he will not appear again in Dragon Age Origins, and it's assumed that his fate is similar to an alive Zevran after the events of the first game. But Zevran can also join your party as a rogue companion. As with all other Dragon Age Origins companions, there are a few different choices regarding his relationship with the Warden. Although, minus dialogue options, Zevran will stay in the party no matter your relationship until his companion quest later in the game. Until that point, all three paths look pretty similar. As a party member, Zevran is probably the most easygoing when it comes to decisions that the Warden makes, making him a good candidate when you just want to make some unpopular decisions. In party banter, Zevran is also fairly open and charming to the rest of the companions. Here's just a few facts from his banters. He tells Alistair that he actually is a devoted Andrastian in his own way. He even prays for forgiveness from the Maker every chance he gets. I don't actually know if this is sarcasm or not, so your mileage may vary. He has tattoos not only on his face, but back in other places as well. Most of them are hidden away in places that most people don't actually see. he has taken bets with Alistair, Liliana, and Oghren to try and successfully flirt with Morrigan. He won. Some crows do have meaningful tattoos, but he refuses to say what his mean, if they mean anything at all. He claims that Oghren steals many of his best one-liners from him. He gets along well with most companions, although Sten and Wynne seem to be the most put off by him. His relationship with Oghren seems to be the strongest in the group, although based on giving each other some shit. He is also seen giving sex advice to Alistair if the Warden chooses to romance him. While Zevran is an elf, he tells the Warden that he doesn't feel that connected to either Dalish or City Elves, preferring to think of himself as just Antivan. Once the Warden receives the quest to start the Landsmeet in Denerim, they will run into an Antivan crow ambush led by Taliesin. He pleads for Zevran to come back home, saying that they can kill the Warden now and Zevran's life will be spared. His actions depend on your approval with him, which I'll go into actually just a minute. For now, let's talk about the different paths you can take with Zevran's approval. Friends. If you take the time to talk and gain approval with Zevran, he will open up to you more about Antiva and his past, even going into his relationship with Taliesin and Rhenna. Once Taliesin ambushes the Warden in Denerim, if friended, Zevran will refuse Taliesin's offer and fight with the Warden against him. After this, and depending on your relationship choices, Zevran can ask for his freedom, but either way he will continue to travel with the Warden until the end of the game. After the defeat of the Archdemon, and if the Warden survives, Zevran will be at the ending ceremony, talking about how the crows will likely learn of his survival and go after him. His plan is to move around, hoping to not stay in one place enough to be caught, and offering the Warden to travel with him, although no matter what answer you give, the Warden stays in Ferelden to complete the various DLCs. If the Warden does not survive, he will be seen at their funeral. Neutral or enemies. If you never really gain that approval with Zevran, but still have him in your party, unfortunately during his personal quest in Denerim, he will side against you with Taliesin, forcing your hand to kill both. As such, Zevran is dead, for the most part, which, again, we'll get to later in the video. Now, I will also throw here that Dragon Age Origins has the most complicated companion system in the series, so it's hard to talk about and even find evidence about everything that can happen while in the game. While there are dialogues and codex choices from the Warden killing Zevran outside of the initial ambush and Taliesin, I'm not quite sure how it's done, and I can't find any videos of it. There are also versions of Zevran leading on his own, which I'm not quite sure how to trigger in-game, although the Warden can just throw him out. It's also possible that the flags for these opportunities are glitched or were never actually implemented and might actually be able to be restored with mods. So if you have had some of these happen in your game, make sure you're not running with mods, because maybe it might have been a restored flag. Really, Origins gets kind of confusing on what's real and what's a mod sometimes. Lovers. One of the first things that Zevran does is openly flirt with the Warden and their companions. It makes it a little too easy to start a relationship with Zevran, however, and many players report being in a relationship with him without actually knowing it, although a firm no is usually enough to end the relationship flag. He is able to be romanced by either gender too, making him one of the first men in a BioWare game to be in a same-sex relationship. Although quick to sleep with the Warden, Zevran talks about having complicated feelings on love and will disapprove if the Warden admits their feelings too early in their relationship. According to his writer, David Gator, Zevran not only thought himself undeserving of love, he thought himself incapable. His was a life resigned to shallow encounters and jobs to be completed, and true to form, he made the best of the hand he was dealt to him, until the Warden comes along, quite unexpectedly. If you have romance Zevran, he actually has two options during the ambush in Denerim. If your approval isn't high enough, he won't actually attack you or Taliesin, but rather remove himself from the fight altogether. If this happens, a conversation about Zevran's relationship with Taliesin will happen after the battle, with Zevran admitting they still has feelings for the man. If your approval is high enough, he will help defend you from Taliesin, and the quest has a similar ending to the friended Warden. It's after this encounter and the Landsmeet that Zevran has come to terms with his feelings for the Warden and will offer them an earring as a token of affection. The Warden can take the earring or push for a meaning behind the gift. If the Warden takes the earrings with no questions, Zevran will then refuse to sleep with the Warden. If asked why, he explains that he is confused about his feelings and the Warden can either express their love or end the relationship. Once their love is confessed, Zevran will take them to bed again. If the Warden asks for a meaning behind the gift, you get disapproval from Zevran, but eventually he will admit that he wants a future with the Warden, and hope that this can be some sort of proposal or promise for a future together. After the Battle of Denerim, if the Warden has survived, Zevran will come along with the Warden for a time, no matter where they choose to go. If playing a human noble that chooses to marry Anora or Alistair, Zevran can also become a royal consort. If the Warden did not survive, the ending slides reveal that Zevran never took another bed partner and never loved again. Going into Awakening, Zevran is mentioned a few times in the game if he was either romanced or made a companion, although only in passing. If romance, Zevran sends a letter to their lover, wishing that he could be there with the Warden, but he is currently in Antiva dealing with the crows. Namely, as we would later learn, killing his former Grandmaster Eoman. Now, Eoman's death actually happens as long as Zevran's alive and isn't dependent on a romance or not. After the game ends, an ending slide reports on rumors that the new Warden commander might have gone to Antiva, where they and their lover Zevran either had a showdown at the Antivan capital, took over the crows, or just adventure together. All of this is likely to take place after a witch hunt. While we will later know that Zevran has not taken over the crows, we do know that a Roman Zevran likely travels with the Warden still, and it's also possible that the showdown in the Antivan capital did occur. There's no evidence against it. Dragon Age 2. During the events of Dragon Age 2, we aren't really sure where Zevran goes for most of that time frame. According to his codex in Dragon Age 2, around 935 Dragon, Zevran is attacking the Crow leadership and also getting allies and assassins that are in similar situations as he was. A half-burned letter reports that 2 of the 7 guild masters of the Crows are in his pocket, while another in Rialto is dead. He has sent threats that he has delivered on, finding even those who have been hidden away. However, despite this, there are other guild masters that are not threatened by him. Later on, 2 more Grandmasters, which there's a difference between Grandmaster and Guildmaster, but it's not actually explained, so I don't actually know what the difference is, would be dead. Something that was pinned on Zevran, although the exact culprit was unknown. If romance, it mentions that the hero of Heraldon supports Zevran's crusade to bring down the Crow's control over Antiva. If killed in Dragon Age Origins, he isn't actually supposed to show up in Dragon Age 2, but there is a common bug that he ends up showing his face anyway, which confused many. So if you killed him and he showed up in Dragon Age 2, that wasn't actually supposed to happen. If alive, he pops up in Act 3 of the game, which would be set around 937 Dragon. Hawk is approached by an Antiva named Nuncio, asking for help in finding a dangerous assassin who is hiding in the Dalish clan nearby. If Hawk accepts, they will go to the clan and find a young woman named Variel. When asked about Zevran, she is very blunt, saying that he is staying in a nearby cave and has asked the clan to cooperate with whoever is hunting him to save themselves from danger. Going to the cave, you find Zevran, who Isabella recognizes if she is in the party. He is polite and gives you the option to either capture him or let him go. No matter what you choose, once you arrive back to Nuncio, you were attacked by the Antivans and Zevran helps to defend you. If you choose to let Zevran go and flirted with him the entire time, he will offer to sleep with Hawk if he is unromanced, which Isabella can join in if she's in the party. No matter what is chosen, if she is present and Zevran is not in a romance with the Warden, the two will take a moment to themselves, with or without Hawk. However, if romanced, no matter if the Warden is alive or dead, Zevran will reject advances from Hawk and Isabella, although this is also commonly bugged in the game. Also, as a reward for helping him, Zevran can actually appear in the final battle between Meredith and Hawk, although the exact condition of him showing up depends on who is in your party during the battle. Now, in between the events of Dragon Age 2 and Dragon Age Inquisition, Zevran hands information to King Alistair that Prince Claudio Valisti, the same man that is responsible for asking House Aranai to kill Brenna, that he has information on the former King Merrick Theron. This would eventually lead to Valisti's death, which probably is what Zevran wanted in the first place, so I guess that worked out. Now, all of this happens in the first Dark Horse comic series, namely Silent Grove. While the exact details of this comic only work in a very specific world state, the basic plot is still supposed to happen no matter what. I just don't actually know how. Dragon Age Inquisition. Sadly, Zevran doesn't appear in Dragon Age Inquisition, despite a lot of reports of a Zevran laugh coming from Skyhold. It's not actually him, though. See, the voice actor for Zevran is actually the voice for the American male Inquisitor, and it's likely that they had various voice actors already on the game to make different background noises, and Zevran's VO just pulled out the laugh for fun. But Zevran does show up in the War Table missions, if alive. Although there are reports of a bug, again, where the mission pops up anyway if he was killed. If alive and unromanced, Zevran's first War Table mission is called A Missing Assassin, which unlocks after a series of missions about the Crows. He contacts Liliana, questioning why the Inquisition is working with Crows because he thinks he may have just killed someone working for them. He offers to make it up to the Inquisition, and at a smaller price than what they would have paid the Crows. From here, the Inquisitor can choose to take him up on the offer, and if accepted, will kill the man the Inquisitor was hunting, even going so far as to help the Inquisition avoid suspicion from the Crows. After that, the final War Table mission is a request from Zevran, asking for help to flee the Free Marches to escape the Crows for stealing their kill, the same kill that we asked him to complete. No matter what you choose, Zevran is a free man and sends his thanks, and that's the last we hear of him. If alive in romance, none of this will happen. Instead, the only mention of Zevran we have is from the War Table mission Contact Hero of Heraldon, which only appears if the Warden has survived. The mission is merely a letter from the Warden telling us that they cannot help much in their quest to kill Corypheus, but they mention that they and Romance Zevran have their own battles to fight and won't be able to join. While it doesn't state it outright, because of the lack of the previous War Table mission, it's believed that Zevran is literally the only love interest in the series to follow the PC in their adventure after the game ends. So as we don't really know where the Warden is, we aren't sure where a romance Zevran is either. Currently, it's unknown the specifics to what Zevran is up to. Internally, the Crows have been dealing with a ghost, or a black shadow, that has plunged the group into chaos and allying with lesser houses to overthrow the more powerful ones. It is believed that this black shadow is Zevran, and some worry that he will completely undo the Crows in time. Dead? Now, something I keep alluding to is that even if he is killed in Dragon Age Origins, I'm not actually sure if he's really dead. In the World of Thedas Volume 2, this paragraph about Zevran is suspicious to me. We do not know what became of Zevran after that point. Was he slain by the hero Ferelden or made into an ally? Taliesin was sent by Grandmaster Eomin to discover the truth and himself disappeared. Sadly, the chaos in Ferelden, both before and after the Blight, has made any sort of investigation almost impossible. I do, however, find it rather telling that Eomin died 4 months after the Blight in Ferelden ended, with evidence showing a Crow responsible, even though no contract was ever issued for him. 4 other members of House Aranai followed in similar fashion over the next 3 years, returning the house to obscurity. Then both Grandmaster Run and Grandmaster Avalia died, again at the hands of an unknown assassin. I agree with your belief that it is Zevran who is our ghost, the so-called Black Shadow. In part, I do wonder if this is a joke between the staff, as you might have been able to tell, but Zevran's post-Dragon Age Origins storyline has been pretty glitchy this entire time. There are a number of ways that if you killed him in your world state, some glitch comes up to somehow revive him. While there are ways to fix this using mods on PC, part of me wonders if the devs have worked this into the world. Most of World of Thedas Volume 2 is pretty good about being vague around choices, so how did Taliesin disappear if Zevran is dead? If Zevran was killed by the Warden during the ambush, did Taliesin not actually die and then take on the quest an alive Zevran would take? If the Warden killed them both, is there another Crow who is out for revenge who weirdly has the same connection that Zevran had? Or did somehow Zevran survive? Either way, we aren't actually sure, and frankly, deader characters have come back to life. After all, he is known to have some of the dumbest luck in the series. And that, dear patrons, is all that I have on Zevran. Do you still have lingering questions, proof that I'm wrong, comments about your own fan theory? Feel free to tweet me at Gildathon on Twitter or send a PM to user Gillanon on Reddit. Duress all.